Today we're talking about ant plants. So the technical term for this is a myrmecophyte. So the first plant, the ant plant that we'll be talking about, is native to Central Asia, Southeast Asia, specifically Papua New Guinea is where you'll find it quite often. The second plant, the Bulbous Air Plant, you'll find in Central America and Mexico. So both of the plants we're talking about today are myrmecophytes or ant plants. So these are plants that have a symbiotic relationship with ant colonies. So both of them have a swollen or caudex base, which is a great home for ant colonies, and they'll live inside. The ants will reduce herbivory for the plant. They'll protect the plant from anything that would want to eat it. And then the plant also gets nutrients from the ants. So the ant plant is an epiphyte, so it grows in tree branches in the rainforest. It has a very large swollen base or caudex. So it has this very unique, odd, unplant-like characteristic to it. And that's what makes it an ant plant. So these plants are great examples of plant and animal interactions, symbiotic relationships between different plant species and animals. So this shows how plants are adapted to house these ants, which then in turn provide them with protection as well as nutrients. The ant plant, the Hydnophytum formicarum, is really not a great house plant. It comes from rainforests and needs very high humidity, and also grows quite large. So you can grow small ones in a terrarium for a time, but they'll eventually outgrow that space. So this plant is also an epiphyte, but it's much smaller and has very narrow grass-like leaves with a twisted or contorted pattern to them. Unlike the ant plant, the Tillandsia is much more conducive to growing in a home environment. It doesn't require as high of humidity. It doesn't even need pot or soil. Even though this plant doesn't need a pot or soil, you'll still need to water it. The best way to water these is to submerge them in water for about 30 minutes. Usually once a week will be enough, but depending on relative humidity levels, you might need to do it more often than that. So these plants, they do look relatively odd, but you might not suspect that they actually have colonies of ants living inside of them. So this is a cool plant to point out to people to highlight these interactions between plants and animals. And it's cool when people learn that these plants are adapted to have ants live inside of them. So in the coming months, we'll be looking at a few more weird plants in our greenhouse, including tapeworm plants, carnivorous plant species, and orchids with very unusual plant-pollinator relationships.